So I came back from Nyack, New York tonight. I had to go to a funeral for a buddy's dad. A really wonderful guy. May he rest in peace. And on the way down there, unbeknownst to me, was a ceremony, because it's 36 years ago today that Eddie O'Grady and Chipper Waverly Brown were murdered by the creeps of the Black Weather Underground in Nyack, New York, in the famous Brinks heist. And all these years later, Barack Obama gets elected president, having been a close associate with the ringleader of those dirtbags. That would be Bill Ayers. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if Donald Trump was tied to a celebrated domestic terrorist like Bill Ayers? That's why I don't give a shit what liberals think, or what they have to say. I don't want to hear them. I don't want to know them. I don't want to talk politics with any of them. They're all insane. They celebrate the drug culture, which is what? Becoming mentally infirmed on a regular, volunteering basis. You do drugs and pollute your mind. I want to hear what you have to say about anything. But 36 years ago today, I went jogging along the Hudson River up to the Hook Mountain and back down 9W. And my normal route would have taken me back to the left and east toward the river where I lived on High Avenue. But that day, beautiful day, exactly like today, I felt like running a little farther, so I figured I'd run a couple miles longer, and I'd go to my buddy's apartment up on Warren Hill Road. He was on the state police for about 1.5 years at the time. And when I got about 400 yards from the site where Eddie and Chip were killed, I saw a bunch of police cars and ambulances, and I remember being a little disoriented. I had run about 5 miles by then, and there was a lieutenant from Orangetown named Frank Youngman who had his car pulled over diagonally across the entrance to Mountain View Avenue. And Frank I've known since I'm about 4 or 5 years old. He was a T-shirt league coach of mine and a wonderful guy. Got 2 Purple Hearts, buried at Arlington, I believe. He's a wonderful man, veteran of the Korean War. And he had a flat-top haircut. And he was quite a guy. And he saw me jogging toward him. And almost without looking at me, he said, "Chuck, go on the other side of the road," the way he talked. Waved his hand behind his butt. And I kind of acquiesced and did a little do-si-do to his left and then started up the hill. I looked over at the ambulances and the police cars that had been just arriving. Didn't know what to make of it. I remember thinking, why is there no wrecker and why is there no car wreck? I didn't realize that the guys were shot. But 400 yards earlier down the road, I thought I heard fireworks and didn't put 2 and 2 together. And know that those animals jumped out of the back of that U-Haul with automatic weapons, and before Eddie and Chip had a chance to do anything, they were pretty much cut in half. And about that time, I started up the hill, looking over my shoulder. I didn't know whether to keep going or not. And all of a sudden, here's my buddy, Tony Mercado, running down the hill toward me. And he told me to sit around and hang around and wait for his fiancée. I told him I would. And he jumped in an unmarked police car that I had assumed was a state car for many years. But 3 years ago, we talked about it. We never talked about it much. And I talked to Tony 3-4 times a week minimum. And for some reason, we just didn't want to go back to that day. But we did on the 33rd anniversary at lunch, where we met another retired trooper who came in and told us he was there before we got there. I've known this guy for 30 years, and that was surprising that all 3 of us were there. And 36 years later, look at my country. And 8 years ago, when this Barack creep, or 9 years ago, was running for the White House, I was screaming bloody murder. Imagine how Diane feels, Eddie's wife, and Chip's family. Imagine how these people feel. It's unimaginable. My old girlfriend from high school was one of the best friends of Eddie's wife, Diane. I was invited to his wedding. I think it was about 6 years to the very day he died. And the Holiday Inn in Orangeburg is where we had the reception. It was a beautiful wedding. They were a beautiful couple. Beautiful, dark-haired Italian girl and a handsome Irish lad. And I always thought if ever I got married, it would be in October because it was such a beautiful day when they got married. Just like the day he died, just like today. So when I see any of you cops standing over the last 8 years at FOP gatherings with Obama, I got slightly bent out of shape. Because any cop that would stand with that scumbag needs a lobotomy. I can't believe I was there that day, and all these years later, it's like a crazy memory. But this is the strange time that we live in. And it seems like these liberal commie bastards get away with whatever they want. Selling uranium, being associated with known killers. And us conservatives have to be held to the Marcus of Queensberry standards on everything. They throw political correctness at us while they break every rule known to man. Because they're Bolsheviks. If you read Rules for Radicals, it was the Bible for the Weather Underground. And Bill Ayers, who's still walking around alive. I don't understand where you cops would let that happen. It's for smarter people than me to know. God bless you, Eddie. God bless you, Chip. Rest in peace, brothers.